Hello guys, yeah, good afternoon. So thank you for joining today's webinar. Future webinars, maybe we'll try to cut it shorter than usual. Maybe we'll try to keep it at about 30 minutes per topic. So today's topic is about the future of switches, specifically multi-gigabit Ethernet. So Wi-Fi has been accelerating pretty fast. After 802.11 AC was released, Wave 2 was released right after. And now we already have 802.11 AX or Wi-Fi 6. Now the bottleneck now comes on the wired side. So this is the next step for the switches to alleviate that bottleneck. So I'll be talking about the overview about multi-gig switches, some advantages, as well as PoE++, because EnGenius switches are also equipped with PoE++. Later on, I'll also be discussing about the upcoming schedule for the webinar, as well as some information on our training, because we're going to do our ESS trainings regularly every month. So what are multi-gigabit switches? By the name itself, basically it means that each port of your switch is capable to deliver more than 1 gigabit or more than 1 gigabits per second. Now, the switches that we have are capable to deliver 2.5G or 10G. That's on the copper side. So if you notice here in the picture, you still have your SFP slots, which are running SFP+. That means you can run 10 Gbps here on your SFPs. But on the copper itself, this is what makes it special. By using your normal cables, you should be able to run 2.5G or 10G depending on the switch model that you're using. So this unlocks more possibilities in terms of integration with different IP devices or network devices that you have. So one of the obvious benefits of multi-gigabit switches is the faster speed that it can input or output. Now, this is very useful for devices that are released nowadays. We have NASs. Basically, you have your network access storage. NAS originally, if you want more speed for uploads or download from your NAS, you would have to do link aggregation. Most NAS devices are equipped with at least 2 or maybe 4 ports, so you can link aggregate them to increase the transfer speed to your network. But new NAS devices right now are also equipped with 2.5G. Some of them are even equipped with 10 gigabyte Ethernet. So that would make the transfer very fast. Routers as well, because some ISPs in other countries, they already offer 10 Gbps of internet speed going to the end user side. So some routers are also capable of using multi-gigabit technology. Access points, especially Wi-Fi 6 devices, 4x4 access points, they're also equipped with multi-gig Ethernet because the amount of throughput that you can provide with Wi-Fi 6 is greater than your 1 gigabit port. So even if you link aggregate 2 gigabit Ethernet ports, it wouldn't be enough for the AP. It's going to need a faster gigabit Ethernet. Now, of course, for your network from switch to switch, the bigger bandwidth that you have, that you transfer from one switch to the other, the faster that you can transmit data to and from the network. And also workstations right now, especially for those, let's say, who are doing video editing, photo editing, Intel, if I'm not mistaken, have already released laptops that are capable of using 10 gigabit Ethernet. Same with Macs. Now, if you notice these devices, these are not really for the corporate side, but these are also for consumers or prosumers, especially now that a lot of people are working from home, doing businesses from home. So they're going to need a lot of bandwidth on the back end. Now, I mentioned a while ago that the multi-gigabit switches or EnGenius multi-gigabit switches are also capable of using or outputting PoE++. Basically, PoE++ is an upgraded version of PoE+, which allows you to output more power for devices, especially those devices that are power hungry. For example, maybe 4K or UHD cameras that are PTZ capable, outdoor base stations that can act as a power sourcing equipment as well for another device. Some smart lighting in terms of IP-based lighting. A lot of them are using PoE++ right now. One of the benefits I think would come into digital signage, Because previously, for when you want to deploy a digital signage, you would need to think about multiple cabling. One, to power up the device. Second is for your data, so that you can pass through media for your digital signage. So now that some brands or some products are equipped with PoE PoE++ for digital signage, basically you just need to use one cable for those type of devices. Some audio video controllers are also capable of being powered up by using PoE++. Now, those are just some of the devices that use PoE++, but basically there will be more and more devices that can utilize this technology. So PoE++ or 802.3bt allows you to provide up to 60 watts of power. If I'm not mistaken, it can be expanded to 90 watts maximum for 802.3bt. So with this amount of power, there are a lot of devices you can power up that you wouldn't be able to normally do using the standard PoE power. So some of those are like outdoor cameras with heating elements to prevent like fogging on the camera. And then some NAS devices or NVR equipment can also be powered up by PoE. So you don't even have to power them up by an adapter. Now, if you think about multi-gigabit network, some of you might think, but your switches already have SFP slots. They're already capable of outputting 10 Gbps. The problem with that is not everyone can afford to deploy fiber connections. Compared to Ethernet, which is readily available almost everywhere, fiber is still hard to acquire for some people. And when it comes to laying out cables, you would need to lay out additional things if you want to structure fiber. Now, with the multi-gigabit Ethernet port, basically you just have to use your normal Ethernet. In fact, a normal Cat5e would be able to support the multi-gigabit speed as well. So if some of you guys are thinking about future-proofing your network, you actually just have to worry about the device itself. The existing cabling, the existing infrastructure, there's no need to upgrade to Cat6. So let's say you're going to use a 2.5G connection for the switch. It's actually capable to handle 2.5G as well as 5G up to 100 meters. So previously, before 802.3bc was amended, Cat5e was only capable to output up to 1G. That's up to 100 meters. But they made some amendments which unlock the capability of Cat5e cables to run up to 5G gigabits per second up to 100 meter range. Now, if you're going beyond that in terms of the speed, let's say you're going to use a 10G capable switch, then you're going to have to use at least a Cat6 device or a Cat6 cable. So for Cat6, you'd be able to reach about 55 meters for 10G. If you want the full 100 meter length, then you would need at least a Cat6a cable. So for the EnGenius multi-gig switch lineup, we have two models that runs 2.5G. That's the ECS2512, which is non-PoE, and the ECS2512FP, which is full PoE. Now, as I mentioned, this is capable of outputting PoE++, so all the ports here are capable to deliver up to 60 watts per port. Maximum power budget is 240 watts, and both switches are also running L2+, so you'd have those fully managed L2 features plus some of the L3 features, such as DHCP snooping and such. And then your switching capacity is also increased for this model. By the way, the multi-gig switches should be available by next month. So if you're interested on these devices, you can go on our website to check more information about them. So hopefully by early Q4 or late Q3, we'll be releasing 10 gigabyte Ethernet switches as well. So same with the multi-gig switches. Each of the LAN ports here would be capable of outputting more speed or more bandwidth. So you have 8 ports that are capable to output 10G of data. And here you would need to at least use a Cat6e cable. So same with our multi-gig lineup. We have a non-PoE model as well as a PoE model. So both as well are capable of being layer 2 plus, as well as outputting up to 400 gigabits per second in terms of the switching capacity. So one thing about our cloud switches or our ECS switches is that it's capable of being managed in hybrid mode. So hybrid management means that you have an option to either manage the switches on standalone mode, meaning you open your browser, you go into the switch's IP address and configure the switch from there. Or you can use the cloud itself to manage the switches. Now, of course, if you use a cloud system, it'll be easier to manage switches, especially if you have multiple in different locations. You have full information on your dashboard. You can see the port information. You can configure your layer 2 settings from there. And in the near future, you'd be also will also enable switch management from the app as well. So right now, you can straight away add devices on your cloud and monitor them from the app itself. By the way, next week we don't have a webinar. Our next set of webinars would be on July. So here's the schedule if you guys are interested. July 1st, we'll be having exposure analysis. So this is contact tracking. We're rebranding it to exposure analysis, but it's basically the same feature. I'll be discussing about cloud updates as well. And the week after that, I'll be walking you guys through the Cloud to Go app. So again, the InGenius Cloud to Go app is the application to use for the cloud if you want full management. So the Cloud to Go app will be equipped with a wizard, an easy step-by-step process where you can set up access points without having to open your browser or connect to a PC. So with the app alone, you'd be able to add devices from scratch to the cloud and fully configure it. The following week after that, we'll be having the Easy Wi-Fi Planner as the topic, because we made a lot of changes as well on the Easy Wi-Fi Planner. By the way, I forgot to mention, guys, so to those that are interested on what are the direct benefits of using a multi-gig switch, so we run a simulation on our lab. So basically, this is how it goes. This is the server right here on the bottom. This server is connected to a switch. Here we use two types of switches. First, a gigabit switch, and then next, a multi-gig switch. So the switch is then connected to a 4x4 Wi-Fi 6 access point. The one on the server is acting as an access point, and then there are two others that are acting as stations or client bridges. So they're also connected to either a multi-gig switch or a gigabit switch. So when we use a gigabit switch, the aggregated speed that you're going to get on the wireless connection is about almost 1 gig. And then if you switch that to a multi-gig switch, you would get almost about 2,500 megabytes per second or 2,400 megabytes per second. So this amount of bandwidth is very important, not just for internet, because maybe some of you would think that my ISP is not even 1 Gbps. So what benefit will it give me? So actually, the main benefit of multi-gig switches is for intranet traffic. So device-to-device transfer of data or server to device. So it will speed up your system a lot, especially if you have a lot of media files that you're transferring back and forth, maybe from your NAS or from different workstations, or let's say maybe in the future you'd be able to run software from a NAS as well instead of directly running it from your system because of the faster speed that you can get from your Ethernet side. So there are a lot of possibilities. So for the EnGenius certification program, we'll be running this regularly from next month onwards. So from next month onwards, we'll be running at least 3 sessions. One for NSky, which is our on-premise management solution, and then one for the EnGenius Cloud solution, and then finally one for wireless surveillance solution. So if you guys are interested on taking any of our certification programs, you can approach our distributors locally or our respective country managers. Yeah, the topic is a bit short today, but do you guys have any questions so far? Okay, I see one question here on chat. Do the switch model support stacking? We don't support stacking, but I'm interested. Where do you want to use stacking? Is it for group management to make it easier to manage? Okay, I see one person raising his hand. Please go ahead. You can use the chat function or the QA function in Zoom if you have a question. Okay, so yeah, the follow-up question here regarding stacking is it's for managing multiple devices using a single IP. So yeah, unfortunately, we do not support stacking on our switches. But maybe one thing that you can do if you want to do group management so that you can see everything on one interface is to use the cloud system. Because for EnGenius Cloud, if you want to manage switches, it's basically license free. You don't need to pay anything to manage your switches. You can add a limited number of switches on your network for management. Okay, good question right here. The server, does it need to have a multi-gigabit network adapter for it to fully utilize the multi-gig switch? So yes, for both endpoints to utilize the top speed in terms of multi-gig. Let's say you're using a 2.5 gig switch. The endpoint device must be running the same speed as well or higher. So our switches are also backwards compatible to previous gen. So our 2.5G can run gigabit speed as well as 1000. Our 10 gigabit switch, however, it's backwards compatible to 5G, 2.5G, and gigabit as well as 100 Mbps, but not 10 Mbps. Okay, another question right here is, can the cloud switches be used on-premise as well? So yes, since our cloud switches are hybrid management switches, you can either manage them through the browser on standalone mode or through the cloud UI if you add it on your EnGenius Cloud account. Another thing that you can do with our hybrid switches or ECS switches is that you can actually manage it as well using the EasyMaster software. So if you have existing EasyMaster deployments and you want to use our multi-gig switches or any of our ECS switches in general, you'd be able to add that on your EasyMaster for management too. Okay, what's the maximum speed for Cat5e cable? After the amendment that was done on 802.3bz, the maximum speed that Cat5e is capable to deliver is up to 5 gigabits per second. That's up to 100 meters. If you want a higher speed than that, then you would have to go over to Cat6. Are all multi-gig switches ports support 802.3bz 2.5G? And what is the PoE budget per port? So yeah, the nice thing about EnGenius switches is that we're one of the few vendors who are capable to deliver multi-gig with a lot of ports, as well as our switches are also capable to deliver PoE++ at a very low cost amount. So yes, all ports of the switch are capable of delivering multi-gig as well as PoE++. So per port, you can have 60 watts. Maximum power budget would depend on the model. So one of our models, let me go back to that screen just a while. So for our multi-gig switch, the maximum power budget is 240 watts. And then for our 10G switches, maximum power budget is 420 watts. Okay, another question here. This is relating to NSky. Can the ECS switches be used as a controller as well? So this time around, the ECS switches will function just as a switch, a layer 2 plus fully managed switch, but the controller function is no longer there. But the nice thing about it is, since we have the cloud system, you should be able to use the cloud as your controller for your switches and access points too. So follow-up question regarding the Cat5e cable. So yes, Cat5e's maximum speed is only 5 Gbps. It does not support 10 Gbps. Okay, another follow-up question to that. How about older gigabit switches? So older gigabit switches, if you connect it to multi-gig switches, they're compatible with each other and they would auto-negotiate. So the speed of your multi-gig, if you connect it to a normal gigabit switch, will drop to 1 gig as well. Okay, question here regarding the models that are on my screen, ECS 5512 and ECS 5512FP. Are this managed or unmanaged? So the switches that we market for EnGenius are all fully managed layer 2 plus switches. That's for our ECS line. For our EWS line, these are layer 2 fully managed switches. So EWS is full managed layer 2, and then ECS switches are fully managed layer 2 plus switches. Okay, so one question right here is, do you have plans to release 16 port and 24 port multi-gig switches? We'll inform you in the future if will be releasing those type of switches. Okay, another question here is, can you use multi-gig switches as a normal switch? In case I still don't have any gigabit devices yet, but I want to do future proofing. So yeah, if all your devices right now are running 1 gigabytes per second maximum, 1 gigabit per second maximum, and you want to use the multi-gig switch as a normal switch, you can be able to do that as well. Okay, one question here is, do we have extended temperature switch for field deployment? I think you are looking for an industrial type of switch, which has a special enclosure to protect the switch from harsh environments. Currently, we don't have industrial switches yet, but yeah, we'll let you know once we have plans to release this type of model. Okay, one good question here. Is it possible for the switches to accept access point of other brands? So yeah, the good thing about our switches is that they work on IEEE standards. So we are compatible with any type of IP device, so long as it's running on the same standard as well. Let's say you want to use a third-party PoE device or a third-party any type of device, so long as it's IP based, you should be able to use our switches for that. Do the easiest switches support multicast? Yes, we also support multicast on our ECS switches. Are there plans to come up with L3 switches? There are plans, but I don't see that in the near future, because right now we're focusing on the cloud platform itself. So over the next couple of months, we'll be adding more and more features on the cloud. We'll also be revamping the Easy Master, like I mentioned before. If you guys missed it out, the Easy Master, the current version is 1.0. So we'll be upgrading the Easy Master to version 2.0. So once we upgrade the Easy Master, we'll be adding more functions to it, more features as well. So do stay tuned for that. Hopefully we can release that around Q4. So while waiting for the other guys' questions, for the cloud system, we'll be updating you guys on the release of the new features. For the new features, usually we'll send out an EDM. And if you guys have a cloud account through Intercom, we'll be blasting out information as well when we release new features on the cloud. So the next big release would be the contact tracking feature, followed by the ability to set specific clients as a VIP client. Okay, question here is, can the switches be integrated or be used for existing third-party network environments? So yeah, if you already have existing switches or existing IP devices and you want to use our switches, you can integrate them without any issues. In fact, if you're also using like SFP connections from other brands, you can also use that on our switch, so long as it's a standard SFP. So switch to switch, regardless of the brand, you shouldn't have any issues in terms of connectivity. So since almost all our features are also standard, if you want to use, for example, LACP, VLANs or anything like that, you can implement and integrate our switches with other brands too. By the way, our multi-gigabit switches, the ECS 2512 and ECS 2512FP, will be available by next month. So if you guys are interested on this product, you can speak to your distributors to pre-order the unit. So if you need more information in terms of the spec, it's also uploaded on our website already, so you can get the full details from there. Okay, here's a question regarding the cloud. Do we need to change operating system or something to manage from the cloud? So no, the way that we manage the cloud is very simple. Basically, if you want to add the switch on your cloud network, all you need to do is register the switch's serial number on your cloud account. So once it's on your inventory, you should be able to add it right away from there and do management. So long as the switch has internet connection, that's basically the only requirement that we need. So long as your switch can access the internet, you should be able to manage it right away. So you don't need to reflash the unit. You don't need to change any firmware at all. You can either do standalone or cloud-based management on the fly. Yes, regarding the trainings, if you guys are interested to sign up, you can sign up from our website, or again, you can contact our local distributors or country managers if you're interested to sign up on any of our ESS trainings. So for the trainings, we have 3 different modules. Again, that's one for on-premise, the other one for the cloud, and then the other one for outdoor deployment, point-to-point and point-to-multipoint. Yeah, by the way, for our access points that require multi-gig for you to be able to fully utilize the device, for standalone, we have the EWS 377AP. This is a 4x4 Wi-Fi 6 device. So it has a 2.5G LAN port because the maximum speed, if you combine 2.4 and 5 gig, is more than a gigabit speed. So you would definitely need a 2.5G connection to fully maximize the wireless connection on that unit. So same with the cloud side. For the cloud, we have the ECW230. So that's our cloud counterpart for a 4x4 Wi-Fi 6 device. Okay, so if no more questions, guys, thank you so much for attending the webinar today. By the way, I wasn't able to upload last week's webinar on YouTube yet because unfortunately I wasn't able to hit the record button. But basically I just do a recording and upload the VLAN presentation. For this webinar, yeah, this time I hit the record button, so I should be able to upload it by tomorrow. So thank you guys for joining today's session. So again, next week we don't have any webinar scheduled. It will be on the 1st of July. But we'll be sending out updates as well on the schedule of our webinar. Thank you guys, and keep safe.